Hey there, weary chronicler of history's shadows. Tonight you're not pressed against some muddy trench wall or hauling a rickety cart through uneven cobblestone lanes. No, this evening finds you subdued, compliant. 19, perhaps 20 summers old, and your summons has arrived. You've been at the waist in deference. You've penned your farewells. You've rehearsed your demise so frequently it's lost all resemblance to dying. You're one of the divine wind pilots in the war's twilight hours, which means you've been selected to disappear with poetic grace. Before we commence this gradual surrender through ritual, stillness, and the quiet dissolution of everything you might have become, grant me one small courtesy. Tell me where you're listening from and what hour graces your location. I cherish knowing who drifts into these tales from across the globe. For early access to fresh narratives, ad-free audio versions, or simply to sustain this endeavor, the Patreon link awaits below. If you're nestled in bed, consider sleep mask headphones for full immersion. My preferred pair is linked in the description. Now recline, settle comfortably. Let's begin. The soil yields warmly between your fingers, moist, dark, clinging to every crease of your skin. It carries faint whispers of decaying leaves, last season's tea harvest, the ashes your father sifts into the earth before planting. You press a tender shoot into its shallow cradle with your thumb, smoothing dirt over it cautiously to avoid snapping the stem. A sparrow observes from the pine above, clicking softly. Your knees protest, though you're too young for such complaints. The ache stems from dawn's chill and the unnatural stillness that follows noon. Your father, crouched beside you, maintains his silence. He's never been one for unnecessary words, and today warrants none. He lifts a root, shakes it briskly, trims the damaged end with precision, and tosses it into the basket between you. Behind the shoe screen, laundry rustles as your mother retrieves it from the line. The kettle's been boiling too long. Its persistent whistle hisses against the quiet. The radio murmurs through the open window, static, then a fragment of national anthem, then static reclaiming dominance. Reception here remains perpetually poor. The official voice that normally recounts frontline dispatches is absent this morning. Or perhaps it continues unheard, with no one left to listen closely enough. In moments like these, the war feels distant, as if belonging to another nation or era. You know better. The war lives in the ration cards your mother tucks into her tin box. It breathes in the gaps between letters from your elder cousin stationed in Manchuria. It stares back from the vacant desks at school and the headmaster's stiff silence when new names join the memorial list. It echoes in your year without novels because papers become too precious for stories. When the postman comes, he doesn't announce himself. The rattle of his bicycle chain on gravel suffices. Your father rises slowly, wipes his hands on his trousers, and walks to the gate's edge. You remain kneeling. The basket beside you has reached capacity, and you sense the atmosphere shifting. The garden work lies unfinished, but something else has commenced. The letter passes between them with both hands extended. The postman bows. Your father bows deeper. No words exchange ownership. You recognize this posture. It mirrors the temple steps' reverence. You watch your father recross the narrow path, cradling the letter in both palms, as though it's too sacred to fold, too momentous to carry casually. His expression reveals nothing. It never has. He sets the envelope beside the basket and resumes kneeling without comment. Neither of you speak. You plant the final 2 sprouts before retrieving it. The paper feels thin yet official, cream-colored, uncreased. Your name stares back in disciplined script, not quite calligraphy, not quite mechanical reproduction. The contents state their purpose clearly, even as their meaning blurs. You've been chosen. You've received an honor. Your presence is requested. The date stares back, 3 days hence. The location underlined emphatically. No signature graces the page, only a seal, crimson, precise, vinyl. Your mother doesn't weep. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't reach for you. She bows once, then returns to her laundry. You hear wooden clothespins clicking in her grip. Your younger brother watches from the doorway, clutching a rice cracker in both fists, crumbs clinging to his chin. He's too young to comprehend the meaning, just old enough to recognize gravity. He stays silent, and so do you. The quiet feels dense rather than empty. Even the birds have stilled their songs. The kettle's hiss has vanished. You sit on the wooden floor inside, removing your shoes with deliberate care, aligning them neatly against the wall. Garden soil still clings to your fingers. You fold the letter in half, then half again, sliding it into your jacket's breast pocket. It fits without resistance. The pocket always awaited something like this. You retrieve your travel bag from beneath the bed and begin assembling your belongings. You move methodically, not from dread, but because proper actions demand their own rhythm. The towel folds with aligned edges. The soap wraps in paper. Your spare underclothes bundle into a furoshiki tied with your mother's saved green string. You pack your writing brush, though you doubt its utility. Your fingers hesitate over your grandfather's poetry collection. You open it, thumb through pages, then close it decisively. This isn't the hour for verse. Dinner passes in silence. Your father speaks only once, observing the radishes grew bitter this season. Your mother nods. She'd already noticed. You eat without conversation. Your brother gets sent to bed early. The futon gets unrolled. Your father smokes his pipe in the yard until fireflies appear, then disappears inside without remark. You sit by the window listening to cicadas until darkness blurs the mountain outlines. Somewhere a neighbor's dog barks. Somewhere more distant, a train whistles. Not yours. Not yet. Sleep proves elusive as expected. You lie awake on the thin mattress, studying the wooden beams above. The roof exhales in the night, expanding, shifting, like something alive. You count breaths. You recall a classmate who left last spring. His goodbye sounded like a market errand. No one speaks his name now. You remember his smile. You wonder if it was his last. You close your eyes and imagine train wind through the window, the scent of oil and metal. You envision a future that won't arrive. Come morning, your mother presents new socks. She stayed up stitching your name into the hem. The thread wanders slightly. You don't mention it. She brushes invisible dust from your shoulder. Your brother wraps his arms around you in that awkward adolescent way, then bolts before you can react. Outside, your father's already binding firewood bundles with practiced motions. You join him wordlessly, accepting the twine he offers. Together you secure the remaining stack. A task too simple for two pairs of hands, but neither mentions this. When finished, he wipes his palms on his apron and straightens. You mirror him. His bow dips lower than usual, slower. You return the gesture. It's not farewell. That's forbidden until the final moment. But the understanding hangs between you like unspoken smoke. He turns back to the woodpile. You enter the house where the envelope waits on the table, its seal broken, its contents exposed. You unfold the paper to verify what you already know, your name, the date, the location. Your eyes trace the opening sentence's hollow congratulations, skip the second's empty gratitude, glaze over the third. The final line refuses to stick in your memory, no matter how many times you reread it. The characters blur under your stare until the room contracts around you. You refold the crease sharply and tuck it back in your pocket, where it fits like it was always meant to be there. Dawn finds you on the platform, bag slung over your shoulder, orders tucked in your jacket sleeve, where they press against your forearm with each step. A constant reminder this isn't ordinary travel. The station teems with boys who mirror your reflection. Young, quiet, freshly shorn, their postures sculpted by obedience. A scattering of mothers hover at the crowd's edges, pressing handkerchiefs into palms or smoothing uniform collars for the last time. No tears fall here, not in public. That private unraveling happens behind closed kitchen doors with cold tea going bitter. The line inches forward as a station official barely glances at each set of papers. His uniform's wrinkled, stamp pad nearly dry. You hear the train before seeing it, a distant thunder growing into metallic shrieks and Steam's ragged cough. It arrives like something exhausted beneath its own weight. A wrist flicks you forward without ceremony. No ticket, no fanfare, just motion, just direction. You board and claim a window seat that doesn't open. The carriage already bulges with boys standing in aisles, gripping overhead rails. carefully avoiding contact. One man, barely older than you, has wrapped a scarf around his mouth like a bandage. Another sleeps upright, chin wedged against his chest, hands folded like a shrine offering. You anchor your bag on your lap and guard your papers. No one speaks to you. You offer no words either. This journey operates on silent codes, stillness, and the careful avoidance of connection. The train lurches forward, countryside sliding past in rice field ribbons and tile-roofed houses. You watch without seeing. Occasionally laundry on a line or a child sprinting beside an irrigation ditch catches your eye. Once, a bicyclist waves at the train, and your hand lifts halfway before remembering itself. No one else moves. You wonder what thoughts fill their silence, suspect they're wondering the same about you. Hours dissolve into the wheel's hypnotic rhythm, a pattern your body starts humming along to unconsciously. When you close your eyes against the weight in your chest, not quite fear, more like shapeless anticipation, nothing changes upon reopening. The man across from you still stares through the window, his reflection ghostly in the glass, blinking so slowly you wonder if he's asleep with eyes open. At a minor station, a battle-worn soldier boards. His cap's frayed, boots stained with things you don't examine. He collapses onto the floor between benches, back against the wall, snoring within minutes. No one disturbs him. You study his face, the cheek's nervous twitch, the deep crease framing his mouth. Where has he been? What has he seen? How long did it take him to learn to sleep among strangers? He carries no pride, only the look of something finished. The day stretches. A vendor moves through selling pickled plums and wax paper wrapped rice balls during one stop. You buy one and eat slowly, more from obligation than hunger. The rice sticks in your throat, the plum's sourness overwhelming. It tastes like stolen school trip memories, like things no longer yours to claim. You wrap the paper neatly and stash it in your bag. Trash feels heavier when you don't know who'll dispose of it after you're gone. Someone murmurs something close to your name. A gap-toothed boy smiles apologetically. He's lost his seat and asks to share yours. You nod and shift your bag. His knees bump yours, fingers restless. He smells of cheap soap and nervous sweat. Osaka-born, he tells you. His uncle flew planes pre-war. He volunteered last week. He says it like an achievement, but doesn't smile. You ask his name and forget it immediately. He talks to fill the silence. You nod occasionally, offer clipped replies. Nervous? He asks. No, you lie. He nods like he believes you. Eventually he dozes, his head tilting toward your shoulder until you shift away. When he wakes, he thanks you and vanishes into another carriage. You never see him again. As the train finally slows, afternoon light stretches shadows into elongated versions of themselves. You straighten. Others begin gathering belongings, brushing crumbs from sleeves, smoothing hair with damp palms. You follow suit, checking your orders again though the base name's etched in your mind. Bold characters crowned with ceremonial language. You whisper it once, then refold the paper still warm from your skin. The station's small and gray, all flat land and fences. A uniformed man stands on the platform calling names from a clipboard without interest. You step off with the others into the line. Your name gets called. You bow. His pen checks a box. You walk toward the waiting trucks without being told. The ground's hard-packed dirt that clings to your shoes, leaving pale dust trails. The sun hangs low. Wind carries iron and oil smells. No greetings. No welcomes. The trucks rattle down a short road to the base. Low buildings, barracks, a training yard with chalked lines. You see men drilling in formation, others jogging silently, a few frozen near a flagpole. Everything moves with quiet precision, as if sound itself is rationed. You're led to a barracks and told to choose a bunk. You pick one by the far wall, folded blanket, nothing else. Your bag slides underneath easily. A capped man hands you a uniform and points to the latrine. You change mechanically. The cloth scratches, collar chafing your throat, sleeves ending above your wrists. That night you sit on your bunk, hands in lap, waiting for instructions that never come. Across the room, a boy writes a letter. Another sharpens a pencil with a pocket knife. You consider asking questions, but don't. Instead, you stare at the wall, listening to the others breathe, the only thing anyone is left to give. You lie down on the thin mattress and close your eyes. You don't know how many men around you will stay longer than a few weeks. You don't ask. You already understand. Morning drills begin with your boots striking cracked cement. The training yard's lines have been repainted so many times they shimmer with phantom formations beneath your feet, crooked white ghosts of past trainees. The noon sun beats directly overhead, your cap offering meager defense. Sweat crawls from your scalp down your temples, but you've learned not to wipe it away. You fix your gaze on the flagpole where the rope jerks in the wind like a dying man's pulse. When the officer calls for salute, your arm rises as if pulled by strings. When his hand drops, yours follows, the motion clean, practiced, hollow. Dawn to bending light. The routine never varies. Rise, eat, march, kneel, salute, bow before the emperor's portrait in its gilded shrine. You're forbidden to look away during oaths. Your voice mustn't tremble. You chant sacred lines until your throat bleeds and words become meaningless sounds. Each syllable etches deeper than any blade could. You whisper them in sleep now, though you don't remember dreaming. They teach you rituals wait before anything else. The exact bow angle, the precise steps to approach the altar, how to rise without disturbing your trousers crease. The instructors speak softly, reverently, not like sergeants but funeral directors. They never shout. Commands come as if reciting last rites. Praise and reprimand sound identical. One lesson focuses solely on posture. How to stand as if the world watches even when alone. Especially when alone. When the man 2 bunks over fails to hold his salute during inspection, they make him kneel for 3 waterless hours. No one speaks to him afterward. You can't tell if it's shame or fear that silences them. Meals come small but identical. Rice, pickled radish, occasional slivers of fish so dried it cracks like bark. The metal bowls clink when stacked. You eat in silent rows on the floor, forbidden to leave scraps. You learn to finish quickly, efficiently, without complaint. Hunger becomes normal. So does thirst. So does exhaustion. You stop counting hours, start measuring time by commands. Rise, dress, salute, kneel, march, eat, repeat. No one discusses tactics. No maps, no enemy diagrams. Cockpit instructions cover only engine start, altitude trim, directional adjustment. Nothing about return flights, nothing about landings. A quiet understanding settles over the group like fine ash. These aren't survival lessons. These are instructions for guiding planes to their ends. They march you into a long wooden hall one afternoon, make you kneel in rows. A trembling voice reads from an ancient scroll, words meant for volunteers that you must memorize regardless. It speaks of sacrifice, honor, Yamato's eternal spirit. They tell you to repeat it until the meaning becomes instinct. You learn to smile without feeling, to speak without thinking. They teach crashing techniques, not just where to hit, but how. How to position your body, grip the yoke, time the final dive. They show grainy films of earlier missions, explosions frozen at perfect moments. No sound, just flickering light on the wall. You study descent angles, debris patterns, impact shapes. The instructors pause frames to point at smoke plumes, at explosive flashes. They tell you it's beautiful. They tell you it's enough. Training flights stay brief, just enough to feel the controls weight, the winds push against wings. You take off, level out, turn gently, return under supervision. The planes are old, borrowed, sometimes missing panels. No combat training, no landing practice, just enough flying to die on schedule. The first time you hear the anthem play during a simulated dive, you don't understand why. Then they make you sing it with arms outstretched, gripping a wooden frame meant to mimic the yoke. You're to imagine the plane beneath you, the enemy below. The harmony cracks under strain, rusted by disuse. Someone vomits mid-exercise, the sound wet, sudden. No one helps him. No one says his name. He's taken out and doesn't return that day. By morning, his bunk stays empty. Each night you polish your boots with more care than your hands. The leather must shine. The laces must be perfect. You only clean fingernails when inspection demands. Your skin cracks at the knuckles. nails stained from soil, oil, sweat. They say your appearance reflects devotion. You start believing it. You stand straighter, bow deeper, stop asking the purpose of exercises. Your hands develop a morning tremor that fades by noon. You stretch fingers before drills to fight the numbness. Your knees always ache. Your lower back stiffens after meals. You move like a machine assembling itself piece by obedient piece. The boy beside you develops a cough that never leaves. You learn to ignore it. When his nighttime coughing grows loud, someone throws a boot at his mattress. He doesn't protest. No one apologizes. Sometimes you glimpse officers murmuring outside the hall. They're never present during the hardest drills. They don't run, don't kneel. They walk slowly, hands behind backs as if strolling through temples. They nod at your salutes, sometimes not even that. You don't know their names. They're not here to teach. They're here to observe your readiness. On the 10th day, a priest arrives for purification rites. You line up barefoot outside the barracks, kneel on stone, press your forehead to the ground as he chants. The air smells of sandalwood and something sharper beneath, polish or camellia oil. Your spine stiffens. Elbows tremble. You don't move until permitted. You start feeling like your body no longer belongs to you, like it's become part of the plane, the emperor, something vaster and colder than both. You're not afraid, not brave, just no longer separate. That evening, your name gets called. You rise and follow the officer down a mildewed corridor. He says nothing. The others watch you go. At the corridor's end sits a windowless room with a table. On the table rests a splintered wooden yoke, darkened by years of oil and sweat. The officer gestures you to sit. You obey. He places the yoke in your hands. It's heavier than expected, awkwardly shaped. Your fingers struggle to curl around it properly. He nods and steps back. You stare at this crude replica in your hands. It's not real, but it will be. Time folds into itself through repetitive loops. You wake, kneel, drill. You bow, eat, kneel again. In the cracks between routine, something unexpected takes shape. Not quite friendship, but familiar proximity. At first it's just shared glances and silent nods. A muttered comment about cold rice. A shrug when the inkwell runs dry. Then gradually you find yourself sitting with the same boys during meals. You don't learn their full names. You don't need to. You know them by their coughs, their towel folding techniques, their chalkboard handwriting. Tonight you share a soup bowl with 3 others. The broth's thin but hot, and someone smuggled in half a boiled egg that floats like a relic. You take your turn with the spoon, pass it clockwise. The Sapporo boy, always betrayed by his accent, tells a story about lanterns big as oxen strung across his hometown's main road during festivals. His fingers draw their shapes in the air as he pantomimes being blinded by their glow. You almost laugh, not at the story, but at the absurdity of lanterns in this place. Beside him, the quiet one sits cross-legged, folding paper cranes from scraps. His fingers move automatically, crease, fold, press each edge with reverence. No one asks why. You suspect he couldn't explain if he tried. The cranes pile beside his bunk like tiny ghosts, each more perfect than the last. He never gives them away, just makes them. You watch him fold one with your name faintly penciled on its wing before adding it to the collection. The tall boy with the limp, allegedly from falling out of a tree, announces dramatically that he'll steer his plane straight into his old school, right above the headmaster's office. His grin sparks a surprised snort from someone. It's a terrible joke. Also the only thing said all day that didn't sound like a command. You begin measuring days by these small presences. The Sapporo boy's pre-bedtime whistle, always the same tune. The quiet one's exact pencil-sharpening rituals. The tall boy's methodical knuckle-cracking before lacing boots. These patterns mean more than names ever could. Names are for records, for telegrams. You don't want to imagine what your mother will receive. Someone carves a fish into the mess hall doorframe, not with a knife, but a spoon's metal tip. Smooth strokes form a wide mouth, scales tapering into nothing. You trace the grooves whenever passing. It feels like memory. You don't ask who made it. You already know. Laughter occasionally slips through, never loud, never careless, just enough to remind you you're still human. One afternoon during formation, Rain soaks everyone before dismissal. The officer remains unmoved. So do you. When finally released, the tall boy mutters, "Maybe the Americans will drown before we reach them." And the Sapporo boy's sharp laugh cuts through the gloom like something alive. The officer pretends not to hear. Or perhaps he does and chooses not to break this fragile moment. But these respites are rare. Most days dissolve into suspended rehearsal. You clean. You practice. You kneel. You simulate. You write letters and burn those failing standards. You recite lines you don't remember learning. You begin forgetting what unstructured silence feels like. Even your thoughts follow orders now. Then one morning, a blanket's folded too neatly. It's the quiet ones, the crane folder. You notice before others because you always check his bunk first. No duffel bag beneath. No paper stack. No pencils. Just the blanket, folded once, twice, thrice, centered perfectly on the mattress like an offering. His shoes are gone. His name remains stenciled above the bed frame. No one's removed it. You wait for commentary, for an officer's announcement, but none comes. The others rise, dress, file out for drills. You follow. Your boots strike earth in unison. No words, no looks. Later, a new boy takes the empty bunk. He doesn't ask about his predecessor. You don't offer explanations. That night you watch him unpack socks, brush, blank writing paper. He moves like you once did, careful, uncertain, not yet hollowed out. He hasn't learned to wrap silence around himself like armor. You lie awake longer than usual, listening to his unfamiliar breathing rhythms. They don't sync with the others yet. He still tosses in his bedroll, coughs too politely into his blanket, moves like someone expecting acknowledgement. You stare at the ceiling, trying to recall the sound of paper cranes being gathered, that soft, crisp folding noise like dry leaves handled with care. But it's gone. You never truly heard it. Only imagined it after their disappearance. The next afternoon, after endless formation drills and ceremonial bows, your name's called again. This time they hand you a wooden writing kit, thin, edges worn, hinge held by cloth strips. Inside rests a rice paper square, short bristled brush, and ink smelling of metal and old lacquer. It's time to write, they say, not a suggestion, not an order, just a statement of fact. A junior officer guides you down a side corridor into a dim room lit by one high window. The light falls at an angle so precise it feels intentional. A low desk, a thin cushion, nothing else. No decorations, no clock, just the hollow space and the door's creak as it seals behind you. You sit, arrange the tools. The rice paper curls slightly from humidity. You smooth it with your palm and stare. The brush feels foreign in your hand. The ink bottle stains your fingers when opened. You test strokes on the desk's edge, simple characters from childhood until the brush moves without hesitation. But the page stays blank. They've told you to write to family, to parents, siblings, the emperor if inclined. No requests permitted. No regrets expressed. No hints for more time. The letter must beam with pride, clarity. It's not for you. It's for those surviving you. You begin with addresses, your mother's name first, then your father's. You hesitate at the next line, skipping siblings entirely. You don't know what they'd want to hear, and space is limited. The date you write might be wrong. Time bends strangely here. Long stretches of sameness punctuated by ritual. You pick a day that feels approximately correct. You thank them for raising you. You tell them not to worry, knowing they will. You claim pride. The brush hesitates on this character. It feels too large for your hand. You describe base food as sufficient, hot. You call the men brothers, though you've never spoken that word aloud in barracks. You say you're honored to serve. The phrase tastes thin. You lie not to be cruel, not for self-preservation, but because this letter will be read aloud possibly with neighbors present, possibly while a kettle boils. You picture your mother by the sink, wiping hands on her apron, holding the letter carefully by its corners. You imagine your father reading silently before placing it beneath the family altar without comment. You write the letter they're supposed to receive. You avoid goodbye. Instead, you describe the yard's plum tree, how it bloomed late last spring, how petals fell into the well like forgotten coins. You remember your sister laughing as she tried ladling them out. You write that you hope the tree blooms early this year, that petals remain white and whole, that branches withstand snow. The ink smears once when your hand shakes. You let it dry, press the page flat, continue. No crossing out. No fresh sheet. The blemish becomes part of the message. Officers will check for errors, not sincerity. That part remains private. That part is allowed to blur. You finish with "I am ready." It's not true, but it's the only permitted ending. Setting the brush down, you breathe slowly through your nose. Your mouth's dry. You suddenly notice how long you've held your posture. Knees aching, circulation stinging back into legs. The window's light has shifted, casting your shadow across the desk. You didn't notice it moving. A soft knock signals time's up. Footsteps retreat. You fold the paper carefully, once, twice, then slide it into the envelope. You press the crease clean, but don't seal it. They told you not to. It will be collected, inspected, delivered by someone whose name you'll never know. You tuck the envelope under your palm. Sit a moment longer staring at the desk's grain. When you rise, your legs feel unsteady. Back in the hall, you hand the envelope to the same junior officer. He takes it without looking at you, places it in a lacquered box with dozens of others. None of the names on envelopes look familiar. That evening after drills, you lie down fully dressed. The Sapporo boy sketches waves inside his locker now. The tall boy presses his harmonica against his lips without playing. The new recruit has stopped tossing in his sleep. He's learning the rhythm. You close your eyes and think of the plum tree. You wonder if it's blooming early. You wonder if it already has. Morning arrives without the usual drill call. You lie in your bunk, eyes open, waiting for the command that never comes. Instead, your name is read aloud. Your bunkmate glances at you, but says nothing. You sit up, lace your boots, and follow the same officer who handed you the riding kit. His uniform is pressed stiff along the seams. He doesn't explain where you're going. You don't ask. You're led to a long, low building near the compound's edge, resembling a bathhouse, but inside, the air is dry and still. They tell you to undress and enter a smaller room where a wooden tub of hot water waits. No soap, just cloth and steam and silence. You scrub your arms, your legs, your neck, pouring water over your head until your hair lies flat and your skin feels scrubbed clean of memory. When you emerge, the officer waits with a new uniform, crisp, fresh, smelling faintly of camphor and storage. You dress slowly, buttoning each fastener with deliberate care. The collar fits snug against your throat. The sleeves fall precisely to your wrists. A barber enters and trims your hair. Not much, just enough to make it neat again. He clips around your ears, brushes the loose strands into a wooden bowl, and leaves without a word. Another man adjusts your collar, nods once, and steps back. You feel like an object being prepared for display. They lead you to a lacquered shrine, its surface gleaming even in dim light. A single stick of incense burns beside the emperor's photograph, its smoke curling into the rafters like a pale ribbon. You kneel on the mat before it, your knees settling into the familiar ache. You bow deeply, forehead to the floor, and hold the position. The ground smells of old straw and sweat, and something sharper beneath. Polish, perhaps, or camellia oil. Your spine stiffens. Your elbows tremble. You don't move until permitted. The priest presiding over the ceremony wears pale robes and speaks in the same measured cadence as the officers. His chants are slow, deliberate, words too ancient to question. You recognize fragments, blessings for purity, for courage, for the cleansing of fear. You're not asked to respond. Your role is only to listen and bow. When the ritual ends, you're helped to your feet and guided down another corridor. You're not dizzy, exactly, but the light seems sharper now, more insistent. The floorboards creak beneath your boots, their rhythm syncing with your breath. At the corridor's end, you step into a room with a camera, a bulky thing mounted on a tripod, draped in cloth, its corners gleaming faintly. A technician adjusts something with a small wrench, gloved hands moving methodically. He never meets your eyes. You're told to stand on a painted mark, feet shoulder-width apart, hands clasped behind your back. Another man smooths your collar, dabs your forehead with a cloth, brushes invisible dust from your sleeve. You're instructed to look directly into the lens. There's a flash, brief, aggressive, leaving a smear across your vision. You blink. The camera clicks. The photographer gestures for you to stay still. He makes a note, checks a box, then prepares for a second shot. This time, you're told to smile. You try. It's not forced, just unfamiliar. The same practiced expression from school festival photos. You relax your jaw, lift your chin slightly, enough to appear resolved without arrogance. No teeth. No squinting. The flash fires again. The technician examines the plate, nods, says nothing. You're told the portrait will be developed tonight, framed, stored securely until the proper time. You're not told what the proper time is. You already know. The officer gestures toward the door. You bow slightly and step outside. The sunlight is lower now, casting long shadows across the yard. A breeze stirs your collar, but the stiff fabric barely moves. You walk back to the barracks in silence, boots tapping against the path, hands at your sides. No one greets you when you return. They've all seen the trimmed hair, the pressed uniform, the faint shine of ceremonial oil on your sleeves. They know where you've been. No one says it aloud. You sit quietly on your bunk. Across the room, the Sapporo boy sketches waves again, his pencil faint against the wood. The tall one rests with his arms crossed, eyes half closed, as if bracing for something not yet arrived. Outside, wind lifts dust from the compound wall. The next morning, your flight gear arrives, folded neatly in a linen bundle, a name tag stitched inside the collar. Not handwritten, but stamped in uniform thread, as if you're already part of something finished. The fabric smells of cedar and machine oil. You dress with quiet precision. No one needs to explain what this means. You're led to a small concrete building where a chalkboard stands beneath a rusted overhang. A list of names is written in firm strokes. Yours is among them. You're told to stand by and wait for instruction. The gear is stiff around your shoulders. The gloves feel too large, but you don't remove them. One by one, the others arrive, pale, clean, silent. You recognize a few from training. Their faces have changed. No one speaks. The officer checks his watch, then the board, then the sky. Not today, he says. The weather is wrong. Cloud cover too thick. Wind too strong from the east. The target fleet has shifted position. Intelligence is uncertain. His voice holds no disappointment, no relief, just flat authority, as if reporting that rice hasn't finished cooking. He dismisses the group with a wave. You step back, uncertain what to do with the rest of the day. No drills, no briefings. You're not returned to routine, but neither are you released. You move through the schedule like steam escaping a kettle, eating, folding your towel, polishing your boots, standing at attention when told, sitting when dismissed. You kneel for evening prayer, reciting each word with perfect cadence, though you no longer listen. They tell you tomorrow. Same board, same names, same uniform. You suit up again carefully, reverently. The straps begin to fit now. The boots have softened. You stand with the others and wait. The officer checks his notes, frowns. The clouds are too low. The fleet hasn't returned to previous coordinates. The winds have shifted again. Dismissed once more. Back at the barracks, the Sapporo boy carves another fish into the wood near his bunk, smaller this time, less certain. He doesn't comment on the delay. Neither does anyone else. The tall boy sits with his hands clasped, murmuring something beneath his breath, not prayer, but rhythm. The new recruit glances around nervously each time someone stands. He hasn't unpacked all his belongings yet. His boots are still too clean. You begin to dream, not in full pictures, just fragments. Snow that doesn't melt. A cracked window that won't shut. A row of helmets all facing the same direction. Once, you dream of standing in formation with no body. Just your shadow stretching across the ground while a voice counts backward in a language you don't understand. You wake with the taste of metal in your mouth. The food doesn't change. The rice is drier. The radish limp. The soup thinner. You eat it anyway. You don't speak. You clean your bowl. You line up again. Days blur into repetition. Same chants. Same posture. Same waiting. Even the silence has a pattern now. One boy jokes, too quietly to be punished, that maybe the weather is a sign. Maybe the gods are unsure. Maybe the Americans prayed harder. No one laughs. The joke isn't disrespectful. It just lands in a room too hollow to echo. You check the chalkboard the next morning. Your name is still there. Nothing has changed. Not the names, not the clouds, not the waiting. The wind carries sand into the barracks now. It collects in corners, under mats. No one sweeps it anymore. Boots track it in. Fabric wears it thin. The air smells of mildew and rust. Your hands crack where the gloves rub. You stop tending to the cuts. There's no reason to keep skin soft. On the fourth day, the officer at the chalkboard speaks without looking up, quieter now, as if talking to himself. Tomorrow, maybe, he says. Then he draws a line through the date and writes a new one beneath it. You stare at the curve of the character, so confident, so final. You don't ask what changed. The morning arrives without warning. You wake before the bugle sounds. The air hangs thick, heavy with unspoken finality. You lie still beneath your blanket, watching shadows shift on the ceiling. The clouds haven't lifted. You can tell without looking, but the silence feels different. No shuffling from the other box. No coughs. No muttered complaints about cold floors or stiff joints. Just breathing, steady, slow, synchronized. When the officer enters, he doesn't bark orders. He simply steps into the center of the room, removes his cap, and reads a list of names. Yours is third. No one moves while the names are called. No one needs to. You've all known this day was coming. You've all checked the weather reports without checking. The only surprise is how long it took. You rise slowly and begin the practiced motions, folding your blanket, adjusting your collar, checking the crease of your trousers, but this time with the precision of finality. Nothing rushed, nothing wasted. Each gesture is its own ritual. The others, those whose names weren't called, watch with still faces. Not detached, but reverent. They've seen this before. They'll see it again. You're led to a separate building near the compound's edge. It isn't large, but the floor has been freshly swept. Lanterns burn despite the daylight. Tatama mats lie pale and clean. A low table stretches across the room, its surface divided into small trays, one for each of you. You sit cross-legged, hands folded in your lap. Before you rests a lacquered tray bearing a bowl of white rice, a raw egg, and 3 slices of pickled radish arranged in a perfect triangle. A ceramic dish holds a single measure of sake, clear, still. No one speaks. You don't look left or right. You don't ask who sits beside you. You stare at the rice, committing its shape to memory. Each grain stands distinct, faintly glossy, as if polished rather than cooked. The egg yolk rests like a sunrise in its bowl. You're not hungry, but you understand. This isn't a meal. It's a frame. The officer presiding over the ritual stands at the room's head. Older than the others, gray at the temples, deep lines carved across his brow. He doesn't read from a script. He doesn't smile. His speech is brief but unhurried. Duty, sacrifice, eternal gratitude. His voice never wavers, but it never quite lands either. It floats above you like incense too distant to touch. You nod once at the appropriate moment. Everyone does. A gesture, not an acknowledgement. A collective signal that you've heard, and that hearing is enough. You lift your rice bowl with both hands. The grains taste exactly as they always have, soft, plain, comforting in their blankness. The egg trembles as you pour it over the top, mixing into the rice like something being erased. You chew slowly, even when there's little to chew. You swallow carefully, ensuring you don't cough. There's something about eating in silence like this that makes every motion feel enormous. You set the bowl down when empty and don't look at it again. The radish is sour, sharp at the edges. You let it linger on your tongue longer than necessary. Part of you wants to remember the exact shape of its bitterness. You wonder if it'll still be there inside you when the time comes. The sake burns gently. You don't drink it all at once. You let the heat settle in your chest before taking another sip. No one moves before the others. No one finishes early. You all rise at the same time, guided by some silent signal none of you recall learning. The trays are collected without ceremony. A boy from another unit bows and removes them one by one. You don't thank him. He doesn't expect it. The officer speaks again, but only to dismiss you. You bow deeply and remain lowered until his footsteps fade. When you rise, your knees crack faintly. No one comments. You're led outside to a smaller yard beyond the meal hall. The air remains heavy, the clouds unmoved. A breeze tugs at your sleeves. A line has been drawn across the ground in chalk. You stand behind it. One of the shrine priests appears, carrying a scroll and a small bowl of ash. He doesn't address you directly. Instead, he chants something low and rhythmic, then sprinkles ash into the wind. It scatters unevenly, catching in your hair, clinging to your collar. The officer returns with another list. He begins to read. The first name is called. A boy near the front steps forward, bows sharply, and disappears behind the building. You don't know him. You don't watch him go. Your gaze stays forward. The next name follows. Then the next. Yours comes somewhere in the middle. It doesn't sound like your voice. It doesn't feel like it belongs to your body. But your legs move anyway. You bow deeply, spine flat, hands at your sides. An officer nods. You follow him without a word. The others remain behind, back straight, faces blank. No one calls out. No one watches you go. The path curves behind the barracks, past the training yard where chalk lines have faded into dust. Beyond that, the runway waits, a strip of packed earth and stone, bordered by low grass and sandbags. At its far end, the planes sit in silence, neatly arranged like offerings. Yours is third from the front, a squat fighter with thick wings and a rounded nose, painted dull gray with red suns on either side of the fuselage. The canopy is open. The leather seat inside has been worn smooth by dozens of other flights, though none that ended in landings. A ground crew of 2 waits nearby, checking the engine housing with practiced motions. One wipes his hands on a cloth and steps back as you approach. You're led to the aircraft like a groom to an altar, not dragged, not pushed, but expected. The moment is already dressed and waiting. The man who straps you and avoids your eyes. He adjusts the belts with careful pressure, cinching them at the shoulders, across the chest, around the waist. One strap clicks too loudly. He flinches at the sound, though you don't react. The belts are snug. The leather seat creaks beneath your weight. Your knees feel too close to your chest. The other crewman checks the fuel lines and makes a note on his clipboard. He doesn't speak. He disappears from view. A final inspection is completed. The man beside you pats your shoulder once, firm, like a teacher acknowledging a student after an exam. Then he bows, short, sharp, and steps away. You're alone in the cockpit. You settle your hands on the controls. The grip is familiar from training, though heavier now. You flex your fingers, then place them exactly where you've been taught. You don't look at the gauges. You already know what they'll show. You know how much fuel has been added. You know there's no return line. Someone waves from the runway's edge. A signal. You don't wave back. The engine sputters as it catches, a brief cough of resistance. Then a shudder runs through the frame into your ribs. The propeller spins with a rising whine. Oil fumes flood the cockpit. You breathe through your mouth, shallow, eyes fixed ahead. The vibration settles into a low, steady rumble. The controls respond beneath your touch. The canopy is lowered. The sound becomes a tight hum pressing in on all sides. You wait. No speech. No final instruction. No farewell. The runway stretches ahead, a long, dry ribbon. Grass shifts in the wind. A flag flutters somewhere behind you, but you don't turn to look. Your vision has narrowed. Your thoughts have slowed. You feel your body press against the seat, not with fear, but inevitability. The way a stone settles at the bottom of a well. A whistle cuts through the hum. Not loud, but sharp. The signal. You release the brake. The plane lurches forward. Slow at first, wheels catching in loose gravel. Then faster. The engine winds higher. Your back presses into the seat. The grass blurs. The runway's edge approaches. Then falls away. The nose lifts. The wheels lose contact. You're airborne. The earth slips beneath you smoothly, almost without notice. The cockpit trembles faintly as you climb. The gauges flicker, needles steadying in their arcs. You adjust your grip slightly and level the plane. Below, the runway is already a thin stripe of memory. The barracks, a cluster of rectangles. The men, if they're still watching, have disappeared into the light. The engine hums beneath you, steady, mechanical, loyal in its purpose. You feel the rhythm settle into your bones, your breath, the space between thoughts. There is no horizon. Not really. Just layers of blue fading upward, pale at the edges, deep at the center. The clouds have parted. The sky is clear. You don't speak. There's no one to hear you. The radio stays silent. Your hands rest on the controls. You check the heading. The course is set. The air smells of fuel and wet canvas warmed by sun through glass. The sky is clear, and the coastline is already shrinking behind you. The coastline recedes in slow, deliberate folds. Mountains flatten into shadows. Trees dissolve into the land's edge. Buildings become indistinguishable from the earth that bore them. You keep your eyes forward, but the shape of home lingers in your peripheral vision longer than expected, like a guest reluctant to leave. Then at last it's gone. Only water and cloud remain. The ocean stretches below in silent motion. No sparkling waves like in poems. Just a dark quilt stitched with indifference. Its surface pulsing in rhythms too large to comprehend from this height. Wind shifts subtly as you adjust altitude. Small corrections with the rudder pedals maintain your heading. Hands stay light on the yoke. You've practiced this motion 100 times. Steadiness matters. Clean lines matter. Precision matters. Not survival. The radio crackles occasionally, but carries no voices. Protocol forbids contact now. The static hisses like breath caught between speakers. You check the dial out of habit, then leave it be. Silence is easier. Clouds drift across your path. You pass through one effortlessly, the world turning pale and thick for a moment before clearing. Moisture beads on the canopy glass. You blink slowly, watching droplets slide away. Another cloud comes and goes. Then another. The sky opens again. Light softens, then sharpens. You fly through it all without changing course. Time loses meaning. No clock in the cockpit. Only gauges tracking fuel, speed, altitude. You measure duration by rising temperature instead. Warmth building in your flight suit. Sweat collecting at your collar. Dampness slicking your gloves. Thighs aching from stillness. Back tightening along the spine. Arms feeling oddly weightless. The engine's vibration travels through boots, seat, ribs. You begin reciting the final prayer in your head. Not the words exactly, but their rhythm. Starting mid-phrase because you can't remember the beginning. Skipping lines. Repeating others. It doesn't matter. The gods aren't keeping score. The sky ahead stays constant. Blue. Pale. Wide. The ocean below endless. You glance down once and immediately look away. Not from fear of falling, but because there's nothing left to see. The world has narrowed to this. Sky, sea, and the shrinking space between. Your mother surfaces in thought. Not her face, but the sound of tea being poured. The way she hums while sorting vegetables. The plum tree's trunk. It's not near the base, the patch of dry moss by the roots. You don't think about what comes next. There's no room for that now. The sea has vanished. Only the ship remains, swallowing the horizon, its deck rushing upward like a steel cliff. Figures become distinct. Faces pale. Mouths open. Hands raised without purpose. The moment fractures into details. The railing's angle, a crate's position, a fallen wrench sliding across metal. You take it all in at once. Then you close your eyes. There is no impact. No scream. No flash of recognition. No pull of gravity. Only light. Weeks later, your name is read aloud in a village ceremony. The hall barely holds neighbors, schoolmasters, and pressed uniform officials. Swept floors. Incense curling from the altar where your portrait now rests, the official one. You're smiling faintly. Cap squared. Color perfect. Eyes not quite meeting the lens. No one notices. Your mother bows with grace. Back straight, sleeves tucked. She doesn't cry. That happened privately. When the letter arrived with your framed photo and thin red sash wrapped in rice paper, the message was brief, honor and formal language offering no real comfort. She placed the box on the table, refolded the letter, and began preparing for this ceremony without comment. Neighbors came with condolences. She thanked them while staring at the kettle. Your father stands beside her but doesn't speak. He bows when required. Hands remain folded behind his back, knuckles pale, joints swollen from field work. He wears the same suit from your cousin's wedding. Sleeves tighter now, fabric faded at the shoulders. He doesn't meet the official's eyes, doesn't accept their incense, just nods once. Then again, as if each motion is another unspoken sentence. Your sister isn't here. Married to a clerk in the next town. She sent a telegram when news arrived. I understand. She didn't request your portrait, doesn't light incense. Her son uses Western pencils and doesn't know your name. Neighbors murmur respectfully. Words like sacrifice and honor pass between them like ceremonial offerings. They speak of duty, family pride, your parents' noble silence. They admire the photograph, so solemn, so well composed. Someone remembers you carrying a water bucket. Another mentions a school athletic meet, though they can't recall if you placed. Officials offer incense and a white envelope containing a ceremonial stipend, placed carefully before the family altar. Your mother bows again. Your father doesn't. The officials speak for several minutes. No one remembers exactly what they said. Clear voices, rigid postures, practiced expressions. Your teacher sends chrysanthemums, a tight bundle with a black ribbon bearing your name, delivered by a boy you never met. He bows, waits for unanswered thanks, and leaves quickly. The flowers droop by evening. The school's letter describes you as dedicated, obedient, humble, lists no academic awards, praises your loyalty, signed by the headmaster, sealed with the school crest. Classmates don't attend, but a few names appear in the visitor book. None write more than one line. The house grows quiet after everyone leaves. Tatama mats retain incense smells. Half-empty teacups remain on the tray. Your mother folds the red sash and places it in the altar drawer beside your grandfather's warm metal and uncle's photograph. She adjusts the frame's position, straightens the cloth, doesn't speak. Outside, the plum tree has bloomed again. Branches heavy with white petals, some already falling. Blossoms collect in yard corners, drifting against stones and the well cover. A few land in the water basin, floating until the breeze moves them on. Your mother notices. She doesn't comment. She sweeps them away each morning and evening. The tree continues blooming. Wind shifts. You aren't buried. No grave. No marker. Just the photograph, the sash, the metal, the lacquered note of gratitude on cream paper. These satisfy records. Earn the pension. Explain the silence at the table. Your father returns to the garden each morning, digging with slow hands. Your mother measures rice, mends your brother's school uniform cuffs. The radio's static voices return, bombing raid announcements, patriotic songs. Played softly, background noise to daily life. The war continues. Paper windows rattle. Air raid sirens sound distantly and fade. For a while, your name is spoken with careful reverence. Visitors pause before the altar, bow, comment on the framed smile. Your mother keeps the cloth beneath it spotless. Your father straightens the photo when it tilts. Then fewer people come, then none. The ribbon fades in sunlight. Incense is lit less often. The altar remains, but the space around it grows still. The plum tree blooms the next year, and the next. Your name is remembered for a season, then forgotten. That brings us to tonight's end, not of glory, but quiet disappearance. One young man folded into ceremony, pressed into silence, carried out to sea by duty and smoke. No victory, no return, just a name read aloud, then released.